Hello, I'm happy to be here again with you for our mediation training. And my name is Inely Cesna. And in this session, we're going to talk about common challenge, particularly for dependency court mediation, regarding any resistance or lack of cooperation that you may see from the parties. So let's take a look at the slides we have for this session. And let's talk about common challenge. I think the first common challenge that we see in dependence court mediation, of course, is the emotional intensity and the level of trauma that some of the parties will present. So often they come with high levels of stress and fear and guilt and trauma. And we are not therapists, we're not here to provide therapy. They have the support for that. But there is an opportunity to allow space for emotions and to hold some level of that, to the extent possible, to the extent that it helps come up with a resolution. So we are not therapists, but we can create the psychological safety within which the emotion can come present to offer an opening for a resolution that is more sustainable for all the parties. So whether it be an emotional outburst or defensiveness or resistance to the process of the mediation or to the mediator, this can project into the mediator as well, that we may be able to hold that in a centered and a cool state so that we can do the best we can in order to move forward and allow the parties to calm down. So here is some ways to address this. First, the party's behavior is not personal to us. It's not really personal. It has to do with the situation they are in, with traumas that they carry, that they project often into us as mediators or into the process. So part of it is for us to self-regulate and demonstrate to them the opportunity for self-regulation, utilizing some of the tips that we have here for dealing with high conflict personality, some communication skills, and just breathe. Really take the time to breathe. And that the breathe helps us kind of center, kind of come to the here and now and create safety for ourselves and for all those involved. We also want to acknowledge the emotions. We don't want to pretend that they're not there because that would be useless. We want to name those emotions, recognize that they're present. Yes, this is an emotional process and it's okay. And use trauma-informed approaches to reduce the stress. This trauma-informed approach, of course, we are not therapists here, and it's not about providing that therapy, but allowing, for example, the breath to take place. Let's take a few breaths together, or encourage the parties to take a break, maybe go for a quick walk around the block and we'll talk in a couple minutes. I'll call you back in 10 minutes. Encourage them to drink water. Water can be very grounding. Just take a sip of water. Let's, bring ourselves to this moment here and now in a more self-regulated way, in a conscious way. So there's ways that we can support them to come back in a different state of mind. The next one is power and balance. We have another presentation that deals with power and balance and ways to utilize multi-partiality so that we can level the playing field for the parties. But we want parents to have a voice, to not feel powerless in front of the system that they are dealing with. And it may be a complicated system for child welfare, dealing with different professionals, but we want them to know that we want the best for them. We are here to support the best for themselves, for their families, and for a reunification process in which there is a bright and a better future for them. There may be differences in education, socioeconomic status, and legal knowledge that can create disparities too. It can create power imbalances. So to the extent possible, you want to bring that into equal position. There's differences in personalities, which we've seen in another video, and how to manage different personalities in different ways so that we create more equality at the mediation table. So as I mentioned, how to address this is where multipartiality really comes into play, understanding what lies underneath their behavior, what are their interests, their needs, what kind of fears and feelings are underneath the situation here, so that we can help resolve them. Set clear purposes and ground rules right from the beginning, so they know exactly what this process is going to take. Guide them through transitions. Once you explain to them what's going to happen, okay, now we're going to transition. I'm going to talk to each party at a time. So this is how it's going to take place. And then after each session of your mediation, you carefully go to that transition to allow them, more a sense of greater safety. Using framing and reframing, as a way to amplify voices that are quiet, and as a way of highlighting important matters, important topics that were raised during the conversation. So those are great ways to do that in using perception checking. I heard you saying this and that and that. Is that correct? Is that what you mean? So you're emphasizing certain important parts of the dialogue. And conduct separate conversations. I think mostly in dependency court, mediations are done separately, but just in case here, emphasize the opportunity to use caucuses where we can deal with the parties in different rooms. So another difficulty, another challenge we may face is the distrust of the system. Parents may feel that the system is working against them. They may distrust mediators, social workers, and attorneys, and this may very well come from just a personality of distrust. They just don't trust anyone. They just feel like it's all out there to punish them, and there can be this perception of bias or unfair treatment. So how do we deal with that? Not only an opportunity to logically explain our neutrality, impartiality, and confidentiality is one part of this. But another part of this, which I think is almost as important as neutrality, impartiality, multipartiality, and confidentiality, is to build the rapport, is to take the time to make a human connection, to listen to some of their stories, to find commonalities in something that they say so that we connect as humans beyond the issue at hand. Another opportunity here is to clarify the purpose. What are we doing here together? Why are we here together? We want to reach an agreement. We want to promote the best situation for you as a parent, for your child, so that your child can grow, can have success in growing and expanding, and we can promote the best environment for that child. So clarify whatever the purpose may be, and very much so the best interest of the child, which is always at the center of attention in dependency court. Acknowledge their address, their concerns about the system. Listen to them, acknowledge it, and hopefully, reinforce our intention to help them be the best they can be, to help your children be the best they can be, to help the family be the best they can be. And emphasize mediation as an opportunity for resolution. Mediation actually being the most graceful opportunity for resolution, because otherwise somebody else is going to have to decide for you. The judge will have to decide. So here we are. How lucky are we that we have the opportunity to mediate and to come up with a solution, to carve here a solution that can be addressed by all those involved. All right, so the next challenge here can be a resistance in acknowledging issues. So there can be a denial, a complete denial, or a minimizing at least of any allegations of neglect, abuse, or substance use. They can be refused to engage in important services like substance abuse programs or parenting classes. And so we want to make sure that we emphasize the need for that in the reunification path, the need to comply with these things. But here's how we can address those resistances. Use open-ended questions, and we talked a little bit about them before. It's the why, the how, the who, the where. Just be curious about, well, how can this be? How could we show safety? How could we show there is no abuse? Just become really curious. When did things happen? When did things not happen? How is it that this is present here? And so just carve out open-ended questions where we can encourage reflection, deeper reflection about those issues of abuse or neglect. Also focus on the greater good rather than blame. There is no blame here. It's always opening up the lenses so we can come into the greater good. We can expand the context within which we discuss the matters. So what steps can help ensure your child's safety? If they're denying or minimizing any allegations of neglect, well, in which ways can then we make sure that there is true safety for your child? What are you suggesting here? What is the greater good for your child? And reinforce the purpose of protecting and strengthening the parent-child relationship. That's what this is ultimately all about. We want to protect and strengthen the parent-child relationship in a healthy way. We want that relationship to be healthy and protected so that the child can grow in a safety environment. Okay, another level of concern here, level of challenge is safety concern. There may be an underlying situation of domestic violence, substance abuse, or mental health issues that require careful handling. Victims may be afraid of speaking up. They may be afraid of retaliations outside, right, in their lives. So we have to be very, very strategic and very mindful here. Talk to them separately, do this shuttle mediation going back and forth. Be mindful of this coercion and intimidation that can happen during, after, and even before the mediation process. And also make sure we refer them to additional resources, counseling programs, and protective services to make sure that these concerns are taken care of. Here, we also want to make sure there is sustainable agreements, that the agreements that are made are realistic, sustainable, and enforceable. so that parents are not just agreeing because they're under some kind of pressure, that they can actually follow through with their commitments. So we want to make sure that the agreements are very clearly written, that a 10-year-old can understand the vocabulary and the commitments that are written in the agreement, that they are measurable, they're specific, they're actionable. We want to allow parties to ask questions and express concerns about, the reality check. We talked about this in another presentation, where you're always making sure that what's agreed there is actually feasible and possible, and encourage follow-ups, check-ins, make sure we assess the progress, that if there's a need for other programs and work with other professionals, that's all part of the commitments made in the agreement, and it's all adjusted into the plan. All right, so here we are. These are the parts on common challenge. Thank you so much for listening, and good luck in your mediations ahead.